Thank you for tuning in to the Voice of the Victim podcast. We discuss a lot of sad and potentially triggering things on this show. We try to be as sensitive and cautious as possible, but if you are sensitive to things involving abuse and may be triggered, please think twice before listening to our show.
Welcome to the Voice of the Victim podcast. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Rosie.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. We just got home recently from our camping trip that we talked about in the last episode, and it was a success. It was very fun, and it was very cold, but It was a good time.
I forgot to wear socks the first night, and it was like 38 degrees, and so I woke up at like 1 in the morning freezing and couldn't fall back asleep till like 3. So I learned my lesson, got some socks after that, some thick socks. But it was really fun. We got to visit a place that we're actually doing an episode about. It's a pretty famous place in Minnesota where a murder happened, and so we're going to be talking about that next week, but we don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
We've posted a clue about what it is over on our Patreon. It's a public post, so if you're really curious, you can go check it out there. But yeah, next week we'll let you know what it is once it's ready. So, other than that, do you have anything else to say before we get started, Rosie?
Not really. Just that I really like camping, and I'm excited to do it again.
Good. Me too. I really did not think I'd like it. But there's something really satisfying about setting up camp.
After a few swear words and frustrations.
Yeah. And just having to keep a fire going to stay warm makes you feel really connected to nature. And also really uncomfortable if you're freezing. Anyway, this week is going to be more of an update week because we're camping last week. We didn't have internet access, and we're on vacation trying not to work. So we're going to share an update to a case that we did in episodes 50 and 51 about Amina and Sarah Said. So according to FBI.gov on August 26, 2020, one of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives, Yasser Abdel Saeed, is now in custody. So, Rosie, do you want to read that article?
So Yasser Saeed was finally taken into custody without any incident in Justin, Texas by FBI's Dallas field office. Now, Saeed was placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list on December 4th of 2014. So he was off for a long time on the run. Saeed is currently in federal custody and will soon be transferred to Dallas County.
Yeah, if you don't remember this case, it's episodes 50 and 51. Definitely recommend you go listen. It's really heartbreaking, but it's an interesting case because it's not a motive you typically hear of, especially in Texas. And yeah, I didn't really think he'd ever be caught. Like, I thought he was off and hiding in Egypt or something, and he would never be back in the U.S., but apparently he was in Texas.
But the Dallas police and FBI never gave up on finding him, despite how hopeless it seemed. They commented, "His capture and arrest bring us one step closer to justice for Amina and Sarah. We want to thank our partners at the Irving Police Department for working with us to apprehend this dangerous individual."
Again, if you want to hear us talk about this, we're fresher on the details. Go listen to episodes 50 and 51. So yeah, that's good news. Apparently some of the family is also facing charges. 2 relatives of Yasser Said, Islam, the 32-year-old son who we talked about, and Yasin, his brother, who's 59 now. They were both arrested. So, Rosie, will you give the synopsis of that?
Yes, it says, according to the criminal complaint against Islam and Yasin, 9 years after the murder, on August 14th, 2017, investigators caught a break. A maintenance worker at the Copper Canyon apartment complex in Bedford, Texas, spotted Yasser inside a unit leased to his son Islam. Dispatched to repair a water leak, the maintenance worker knocked on the apartment door, but when no one answered, he used a key to unlock it. To his surprise, he found the interior deadbolt locked, indicating that someone was inside the apartment. He knocked again, announcing himself as a maintenance worker. A tall, middle-aged Middle Eastern man opened the door and permitted him to make the repairs. The maintenance worker later reported the incident to his apartment manager, who was aware of Islam's relationship to a fugitive.
Ooh.
The maintenance worker confirmed to his boss that the photo of Yasser Saeed's wanted poster matched the man he'd seen in the apartment, and the pair immediately contacted the FBI. That same day, FBI Dallas dispatched a violent crimes task force agent to interview the maintenance worker. The agent showed him photos of Yasser's brothers, along with Yasser himself. The maintenance worker pinpointed Yasser as the man he'd seen in the apartment.
Oh, wow.
That is really, really crazy.
So basically, Yasser had been holed up in this apartment. So after all this went down, Islam had been contacted to get permission to search the apartment, and he refused to cooperate. So that's a huge red flag.
Right.
Then he made a call, and whoever he talked to, he said, "We have a problem." So they pulled the AT&T records and found that he was talking to one of his uncles. Like, they were all in on it, apparently.
Yeah.
And then 1 a.m. the following morning, FBI Dallas SWAT team came and did a no-knock warrant on Islam's apartment. Now, this is a good use of a no-knock warrant.
Right.
You know?
This is kind of funny to me because they found the front door locked, which obviously it would be at 1 a.m. They breached it open, and they didn't find anyone inside, but then they saw that the patio door was a glass patio door opening and shutting. And then they saw that there was a bush underneath with a bunch of broken branches. So obviously they thought, well, someone just like jumped off of this patio and fell into the bush.
And also a pair of eyeglasses was down there. So they collected those as evidence, and someone is having trouble seeing now.
The FBI was able to collect several pieces of evidence from inside the apartment. What they found were several cigarette butts, a toothbrush, and a luggage bag inside of a closet. Now, all of these things are definitely going to have DNA on them.
So the DNA was submitted to a lab, and it was analyzed, and there was a 1 in 5.3 quintillion probability that the DNA found on the cigarette butts, eyeglasses, and toothbrush came from Amina and Sarah's biological father. So that's not a great ratio. 1 in 5.3 quintillion?
No. Bummer.
But 12 days after the raid on the apartment, August 26th, 2017, Customs and Border Patrol located Islam, the son, more than 1,000 miles away from his apartment, inside a car selected for secondary screening at the U.S.-Canada border.
Woohoo.
So what are the odds that this car would randomly be selected for screening in Canada? The driver of the car's name was Haney Medhat, and he told CBP, Canadian Border Patrol agents, that he and Islam had decided to take a crazy road trip.
It doesn't sound too crazy to me since we just did that.
Yeah. But then they searched his phone and found that what he told his employer was a family emergency. So that's the words you use when you need to smuggle a wanted man out of the country.
Yeah, definitely.
So 3 years later, again, this was 2017 that they found that Yaser was out and about, which this I don't think went public because we researched this case a year ago and I never found anything about this. There were rumors about them trying to cross the border, but there wasn't anything solid.
Yeah.
But 3 years later, on August 17th, 2020, FBI agents began 24-hour surveillance of a home in Justin, Texas. It was purchased in the name Dalal Saeed, which is Yasin's daughter. Again, this would be Yasser's niece. And they watched Islam and Yasin driving to the home, delivering grocery bags inside, carrying trash back to their car.
Like
but they
nothing
weren't
crazy.
living there.
Oh, that is weird.
They were just coming there to like bring food and then take out trash. So it seemed like someone else was living there.
Yeah.
And they were just providing supplies and then getting rid of trash, which, man, that sounds like so much work. Like, is it really worth it to protect a family member. Like, it's so much extra work for them to do this. But then 2 days later, on August 19th, at 11:51 p.m., just before midnight, Yasin and Islam had departed the residence, and FBI agents observed a shadow of a person walking across the interior of the residence in front of a window twice. So someone was in this house, obviously.
Right after they had left.
So on August 25th, agents again saw Islam and Yasin exit the home with 2 bags of trash, and this time they followed them to a shopping center in Southlake, Texas. It was about 19 miles from the house, and they watched Islam exit the vehicle, and Yasin pulled around the side of the shopping center, and once the vehicle was pulled out of the lot, agents began to dig through the garbage cans because they had dumped the garbage there.
They were on it.
And in the cans, they located 2 bags that matched the bags they saw the men carrying. So they seized them, took them back as evidence, found numerous cigarette butts and other garbage. And the next day, they executed another search warrant on this home. And guess who they found inside?
They found him.
Obvious.
They found Yasser.
So they arrested Yasser on the spot, and then they found Yasin and Islam at a separate location, and yeah, they're all in custody now. But if they're convicted, Yasin and Islam face up to 5 years each in federal prison just for hiding Yasser, and Yasser faces the death penalty because capital murder charges in Texas.
Not a good place to get in trouble. And I think that Yasin and Islam should do 5 years. I mean, they're so not cool.
How can they not see the wrong in what Yasser did?
Unless Yasser somehow had them manipulated. But man, you'd think it'd be somewhat easy just to like tell the police.
I can understand more if he had Islam, his son, manipulated. But his brother,
right?
Like, I guess they're both younger than him, so maybe it's like his older brother, and one of them is his father. So I guess it's very possible he could manipulate them just because he's someone they automatically respected their whole lives.
But at least, no matter what, Yasser is finally taken care of. He's being taken care of.
Yeah, I'm glad he's finally going to face some consequences for what he did, because it's really heartbreaking, the whole thing. But we got to talk about something else.
Yes, we do.
Is really just yikes. Okay.
Yeah. Can I explain how this even started?
Yeah.
Because yesterday I fell into a rabbit hole about Japanese junior idols, which just kind of popped up on my YouTube page, and it was like this little mini documentary about it. And it's insane to me that these 10 to 12-year-old girls are being labeled as junior idols, and they want to have like singing careers and dancing careers. And they do concerts, but all of the people in the audience and all of their fans are like 40 to 70-year-old men. And like so obvious that these guys are doing it for sexual pleasure. I mean, it's so messed up. And the girls are like wearing mini skirts and crop tops and high heels. There was even one girl in like a French maid costume singing, and she's like 11.
So basically just inappropriate.
So inappropriate.
No reason for an 11-year-old to wear something like that.
No. Japan just banned child pornography.
What?
Like a couple years ago. Like you can't.
Are you kidding me?
You can't get.
They just banned it?
Yeah. And so like this to me is like, well,
what?
We can't technically watch child porn, but we can watch this 11-year-old jump up and down in a mini skirt and crop top.
Okay, so that really does tie into what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, because then in the website, they're talking about this as well.
Wow. Okay, well, along with what you just said, we're going to be sharing some of our thoughts of something that has been pretty controversial over on Netflix. And weird enough, it also has won a Sundance Film Festival award for Best Script before it was even filmed back in 2017.
Why?
I know. But anyway, it's Cuties, which you've probably heard of. Where do we even begin with this?
I don't even know. Okay, so like the article and the documentary were talking about the Japanese junior idols, and then they talked about Cuties, and I was like, I've heard of it because I remember seeing like the little advertisement on Netflix, and it was like these girls in these like sexy outfits, and then initially I was like, oh, it's like a teen dance group or like, you know, like high school or college. And then I looked at it and I'm like, no, these are like little kids.
Well, and even the day it came out, there was this huge controversy about just the little tagline they had. It was like about an 11-year-old girl exploring her femininity with twerking dance group.
Twerking dance group.
So right off the bat, it was like, what?
Yeah. Because
this is on Netflix. You know, I'm a really neutral person. I would never tell anyone else what they should and shouldn't do in most areas. But, you know, there's certain things that are inarguably wrong, like murder, rape, physical assault. And personally, I believe that sexualizing a child was also one of those things that's just blatantly wrong. But apparently, Netflix, one of the largest and most powerful commercial streaming platforms in the world, sees no problem with it.
Right.
And, well, let's talk about it, because those are huge accusations to make.
Right.
You know, but I think we should talk about why we're making those claims.
Right. I guess I would say from the beginning we started this movie, I was like, what? like who is this movie made for? Like what age group? Because at first I thought it was like a kid movie.
I know. Well, you'd think that, but then I looked and it's rated TV MA. Mature.
Yeah.
So why would a movie starring 11-year-old girls be rated mature?
Right.
Well, a lot of people have been taken back by the things that are shown in the film.
And when facing criticism for the release of this film, Netflix in turn said, you should watch the movie before attacking it. It's meant to be a social commentary against the sexualization of young children and a powerful story about the pressure young girls face from social media and from society growing up.
Which sounds like a great thing, an important movie to watch, you know? It's a very noble thing to make a movie for. I mean, that's one of the things we try to raise awareness of on this podcast is, well, we'll get to that later, but from what they're saying, it sounds like this movie should be praised and that it's accomplishing something really important.
Right.
So along with that, other people said that this film is exposing and showing the problem with the sexualization of children. But this is where they lost me, because obviously we watched the film last night and I still feel disgusting for even watching it. But someone else on Twitter, Jack Saint, he made the argument that it really can't be overstated how explicitly Cuties condemns the exact culture of child sexualization it's being accused of promoting. A culture that actually exists and should be called out. And again, I completely agree. This culture should be called out. Obviously, we're very passionate about raising awareness of that on our show. But this movie so obviously did it the wrong way.
Right. So, I would say that it did not necessarily condemn, but it did like throw out there the culture of child sexualization. But it did it in a way that it felt like it was celebrating it. Yeah. Like I did not get the vibe of this is bad. Not until like the very, very end.
And
a little bit.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
But this is such a sensitive topic.
I don't know why it is.
If you're going to make a movie like this, you need to be very careful. You need to be very precise, and you need to make your message very clear.
Well, maybe
you can't leave it up to artistic interpretation.
Right. There was too much interpretation where I didn't even know what to interpret.
So, Rosie, why is it that we're saying that this is the wrong way?
Well, the movie shows a group of 11-year-old girls dancing and twerking in sexually suggestive ways, and also spreading their legs while the camera zooms in on their private parts. So inappropriate.
I'm sorry, but they cannot claim that this movie is helping in the fight against child sexualization and pedophilia. Because you can say you're trying to accomplish whatever you want, but if if you're part of the problem like this, using real 11-year-old girls, that's so counterproductive. And we'll get into that more. But then there was another person on Twitter, Rosie, what did they say?
Okay, this person named Rin said, "This is like criticizing Schindler's List for depicting the Holocaust."
So
no, it is not.
This only makes sense if you don't think about it at all.
No, not even.
But, well, yeah, because Schindler's List didn't actually commit the crimes that they were depicting.
Right.
They didn't kill any minorities within death camps to portray the Holocaust.
Well, and you knew the whole time that the concentration camps were bad. I thought that they were trying to say it was good.
The message was clear.
Yeah.
Cuties, on the other hand, actually uses real children in the film and has the camera film them in a very sexually charged way.
Oh my gosh.
They could have not done that and instead implied what they were doing, you know, only showing their faces, just enough to get the point across of what was happening without actually making basically softcore child porn.
Yep. Softcore child porn. That's what I saw.
Yeah. You said that last night. There are several dance numbers within the movie, all of which drag on way too long while filming children, real children twerking. But on top of that, it's not even a good movie. Like we've been saying, the message is not clear. I mean, okay, the main character is dealing with some family issues at home, which leads to her rebelling. So, like, it's a good start. But let's give a quick synopsis of the character arc here.
Okay, so the main character's name is Ami. She's a young immigrant from Senegal, and her parents are very religious, and the husband decides that he wants to take a second wife. Now, this is soul-crushing to Ami's mom, but her mom tries her best to, like, not show it in front of the kids and just be, like, a strong parental unit, really.
They're also stuck in this very poor neighborhood in Paris because they were immigrants from Senegal.
Right, they're in the projects, newly developed in Paris. Ami lives with her mom and her younger brothers. Her dad, like I said, is getting married to a new woman, and it's really tense. The wedding is coming up. Ami, like, found out accidentally when her mom was on the phone and she was hiding under the bed. It's just a mess. So obviously you can understand where there's a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions going on for Ami when she's already becoming a preteen, a teenager.
Yeah.
So it's just heaped on top.
Pretty soon into the movie, she gets her first period.
Right.
So far, it's good, you know? It could be a very powerful premise to make a good story with. Like, there's so much there they could have worked with to make a powerful story, even about what they made it about.
And they feel like I should interject, too, that they made some pretty good points. Like, there's nothing wrong with growing up in a religious household. I don't believe that. But they do show, like, it's a little restraining for her. She's she has to go into, it's almost like a woman's church with her head covering, and she feels like she can't be herself because, like, you never see her with the head covering on anywhere else but when she's with her mom in this particular church-like setting. And she's really trying to figure out who she is at this time.
And as this movie starts out, it's displaying the fact that to every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, you know? That's kind of a staple of this movie. But later I'll talk about how they completely mess that law of reality, basically. They mess it up later.
All right.
So what's next?
So later, Ami comes across this girl who lives in the same apartment as her, dancing suggestively in the laundry room. When they first show this girl, I think she's like in her 20s because she is wearing super tight, like, pleather jeggings and a super skimpy crop top.
Yeah, they don't show her face for like 2 whole minutes. They show her twerking and they don't show her face.
And she's like super, super long hair. Like, she looks older from behind because
you think she's an adult.
They want to portray that look. This girl is part of a twerking dance crew made up of different 11-year-old girls at the school where they both attend.
And I just gotta say, this is the first example of a scene that's sexually suggestive that goes on way longer than it needs to.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this movie could have been slightly better, even if they did show some of the stuff they showed, if they would have made it short and quick.
Right.
Like, there's no reason they needed to make these scenes so long.
Like, pan her body. With
and zoom in on the butt, and it's just...
Right.
Why?
So this girl, like, she's doing her thing. She's twerking. She's dancing. She's ironing her hair with a like clothes iron. And Ami gets really entranced by her. She like wants to be her. She's super different from what Ami is. And I get that. Like kids are super curious about things that they aren't. So over the next few days.
They want to be cool. They want to fit in with the cool groups. And this girl was part of a cool dance crew. Over
the next few days, Ami like kind of spies on this dance crew group. Like she sees them at school. And then there's another time where she spies on them while they're dancing, like practicing, and then they throw a rock at her head.
While the first time she encounters them away from school, they see her with her little brothers, and they start throwing rocks at her, and they bruise her in the head.
No more than that, they like scab her.
Yeah, there's like a.
She's still like, yep, I want to be their friend.
The next time she goes to talk to them.
Yeah.
And she pretends it never happened.
So Ami just slowly starts changing and ends up stealing her uncle's cell phone and uses it to get into this dance crew and make her own social media page. She has a camera on the phone to film them, and then using the phone, she can post all the dances to social media. Super exciting.
Yeah, so basically, these girls only let them in let her in because of what she had to offer them with this cell phone. Because
they didn't want to let her in. Yeah. Only the long-haired girl that I can't remember her name.
I gotta say, these girls are
Angelica.
Terrible.
They were really mean to her.
I mean, it seemed extreme, but I guess kids can be really mean, you know? That's just the way it is when people are growing up. They haven't learned how to socialize yet.
Right.
And I'm not saying that the mean kids are the problem with this movie at all. You know, 11-year-olds are going through weird changes in life. They're discovering new things about their bodies. And the things they show in this movie are things that real 11-year-olds go through and that they do. But it's not something that needs to be filmed and shown to adults. It's like the difference between a young person going through hormonal changes and the things they might do in private when they're discovering themselves. The difference between that and actually filming it and making child pornography. It should not be filmed, and especially not put on Netflix, one of the biggest streaming services. And people, they might argue the show Big Mouth does the same thing, but that's an animated show. No actual children are involved in the production. And that's the problem I have with Cuties. They're filming real children, making them say sexually charged lines, and dance in a provocative manner. There's just so many scenes in this movie that adults should not be making child actors say. It's one thing if they do it on their own, but it's just inappropriate for adults to make children do this.
Right.
And it's not educational for kids, this movie.
No, it wasn't even made for children.
Yeah.
Because of the audience MA.
Mature rating.
So,
like, Big Mouth actually is educational for kids because, it talks about things that real kids go through.
Well, and it's such a comedic show. And it's not...
And again, they're not exploiting real children. They're just talking about their own experiences growing up.
I guess we as the viewer are the ones who decide how we feel about the content that creators put out. So if I as a viewer am watching this and think... I feel like I'm watching soft porn.
I feel like this should be illegal.
Yeah, this is gross. Then they did it wrong. Them just saying, no, you're looking at it the wrong way. You're not, no, it doesn't make sense that you cannot just tell me your vision. It should come through in your film. So, I don't know.
That's a highlight or a hallmark of a well-told story is that the moral should be clear.
Yeah, they shouldn't be like, oh no, this wasn't softcore kitty porn. This was actually an educational film. That doesn't make me say, oh yeah, you're right. That makes me think, what?
Yeah, they're trying to claim it's an art house film that you can only get if you're really artsy and if you're in the club. But you can't do that with a film that's about such a sensitive topic.
Right.
You have to make it clear. But we're going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
Let's continue the synopsis.
Okay. So the dance crew let Ami join and film for them. They don't even let her dance at first. Okay, well, she can film us. Super mean. She starts practicing dance moves in private, and eventually she gets to show her moves to the girl who lives in the same apartment building, Angelica. And this is after the dance crew got into a fight with each other, and one of the girls on the squad got kicked out. Super nice. Sisterhood, am I right?
Yeah.
So after this, the main character, Ami, she gets to join the dancers, and they're auditioning for some kind of dance contest because they're trying to beat some other dance crews, which, by the way, they show that dance crew.
Watch a video of this rival dance crew.
They're called Sweetie Swags, and one Sweetie Swag flashes the camera, and you see a full boob, and I'm just like, at first I thought these are like 18 plus girls.
Well,
and then you find out that they're also...
According to IMDb, this was a group of minors, but I don't know if it was really a minor that they showed, because that's way
Well, it's
over
portraying a minor anyway.
Well, yeah.
So I'm like, no, this is so not okay. Not okay.
Just add it to the list of things
this
movie did wrong.
Going on. At some point, they break into a laser tag place. They just walk in the back door and they get caught. And obviously, or stupidly, like before they get caught, they're like pretending to play laser tag with finger guns. And it's like, oh, this is fun.
And then
like,
they just like lay in a pile on the floor after they all pretend to shoot each other.
Which also looks kind of sexual. They get caught. The main character then twerks for the workers.
Yeah,
and
they threaten to call the police. And so Ami twerks.
She starts dancing. And one of the creepy guys is into it.
Yeah, he starts like looking at her, like turning his head, like he's into it.
Like the
and they
icky
finally
way.
tell them to leave because the other worker was getting creeped out by his manager's reaction. Because the first worker was going to call the police and wasn't going to take any crap from them. But the next one came and started checking them out.
Yeah.
Then the first one got creeped out and let them go because he was like, "What's wrong with you, dude?
So
Why are you
Yeah.
buying into this?"
I guess right there is like a piece of representation for sex sells, and teen girls
Yeah.
are getting caught up with that and like using it to their advantage.
Again, I don't think there's a problem with showing a scene like this where this happens and the problem with it, but the way they film it, it's not right.
At another point in the movie, we're kind of fast forwarding through a few things. Ami's uncle, the
If
one.
I forgot anything, you can mention it.
Oh, I can't. I just know we fast forwarded. Ami's uncle, the one who she stole the phone from, sees it and tries to take it back. He's demanding for answers, and she's freaking out because she needs the phone. At first, she takes off her sweater, and then she bites him, bites his hand, trying to get it back, and then starts unbuttoning her pants. Like she's gonna like show him her genitals.
Yeah, again, trying to use sexuality to get what she wants.
He pushes her away and tells her to stop and is like, "What is wrong with you?" She ends up grabbing the phone and locking herself in the bathroom. And in a vicious, like, fearsome race, she pulls down her pants and her underwear, takes a picture of her privates, and immediately posts it on social media. What? Like, they didn't even have, like, nothing came, like, there was no climax where, like, this needed to happen. Other than them saying, like, they're little girls and, like, the dance crew was young.
I don't understand this. Why this had to be in the movie at all? Because I've never heard of a teenage girl doing this.
Or an 11-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Not even a teenager yet. I've never heard of a kid posting a picture of their privates on social media. Like, this is not representing real life, at least as far as I know. Even if it is, why?
It's so wild. The next day at school, Ami faces surprisingly little backlash.
Yeah.
Next to none.
While we're watching the scene, we're like, oh my gosh, she's going to get in so much trouble for this.
Yeah.
And she faces nothing.
The only thing that happens is a boy who slaps her butt.
Yeah. It's like, do her parents even know? She used her uncle's phone, and right after she posted it, she gave it back to him. Like, didn't he get notifications about it? Or, like, what the heck?
I know. So a boy slaps her butt when she's walking up to the front of the classroom, and she starts yelling at him. And he starts saying, like, oh, you're a slut.
The
You're a
teacher
slut.
tells him to go to detention, and he's like, why? She's the slut. She's the one who posted a nude picture on social media or whatever.
Yeah.
And so what does she do?
She says, "You're lying. No, I didn't." And then stabs him in the hand with a pencil. Done. Like, end of scene.
So throughout this whole part of the movie, I'm just like, the main character is a terrible person. Because they're not showing enough of what she's going through at home and why she's rebelling.
Well,
you know?
I do feel like they are showing, with her mom and her dad.
But they're not showing the emotional impact on her. They're just showing her lashing out.
Yeah.
So they're not making that connection between the two.
And no consequences for her actions ever.
Yeah. A movie needs to go out of its way to show emotional connections between cause and effect. And it doesn't.
The only consequence is coming up right now. After posting that photo of Ami's genitals, she gets kicked out of the dance crew for ruining their social media image.
Yeah, because she posted it on their dance social media profile.
So dumb. So they're all like, "Why'd you do that? Like, everybody wants us to do it, and we're not doing it. We're not whores. We're just skanky," I guess is what they were going for. They replace her with the girl that had originally been in the group, whom they kicked out for Ami before the whole fight. But the day the girls are dancing in the finals of their big competition, Ami waits behind a wall along a river where the girl who replaced her is walking to the competition and pushes her into the river.
Again, just another thing that made me feel like the main character sucks.
She's just
terrible.
Watches her as the girl is appearing to be drowning.
Yeah, sure. Her head's under the water and she's like, she can't swim.
And when she sees the girl grab onto a buoy, she casually walks away. Then she shows up at the competition just before the crew is called on stage, literally flawlessly just a few seconds before. Mm-hmm. And they're like, "Oh, she's not here. Well, I guess we'll let Ami come in."
So they have no choice but to let her dance with them.
And they're like, "Huddle, girls, and we're going to win. We're going to win." And run on stage. And this is where the grand finale of disgust, icky feelings, and "am I a pervert now?" scene comes on.
But I will say, this is finally when the movie shows the slightest hint that what they're showing on screen is messed up. Because they finally show some moms in the audience shaking their heads in disapproval.
Right.
And that's all the movie gives you. Besides like some grossed out reactions of adult men being hit on by these girls, this is all the movie gives you to say, hey, this is messed up.
Right.
There's no consequences for their actions. I don't know how they expected the audience to react to this. Mm-hmm. Because besides showing her erratic behavior, they kind of leave the audience in the dark about what's really going on inside of her.
Right.
Like, they need to show that somehow.
Maybe that's the art in it.
I mean, is all this stuff going on at home really enough to make her rebel this hard, where she's stealing, twerking, posting nude photos,
stabbing,
almost murdering another girl?
I know. It just
doesn't make
wild.
sense to me.
Partway through this big dance performance, though, Ami suddenly stops dancing and tears up. Then she just runs off stage and runs all the way home, where she's first scolded by her aunt, who's there for her brother's wedding.
Which is that same day.
But the main character's mom, Ami's mom, steps in and makes the aunt stop scolding her.
They never address the phone stealing or the nude photo she posted. No, there's no consequences.
Nope, none. Instead, Ami just cries in her mom's arm for a while until her mom says that she doesn't have to go to her father's wedding, which is also that day. She never faces any consequences for literally anything that she does in the movie. In fact, you don't even know if the mom knows about anything.
Yeah.
Except for her stealing the money from her purse that we didn't talk about.
Oh, that's right.
But that had no consequences either.
I couldn't put everything in here.
No.
But this is why I say it's not only a morally wrong movie, but it's also just a bad movie in general. Because, like I mentioned earlier, a good movie is written in a way so it has realistic consequences for the actions of the characters. You know, this gives the film stakes. It gives the actions of the characters importance, because otherwise you're just watching a movie. Actions have to have an equal and opposite reaction like they do in real life. But the things we just mentioned are never addressed again. And I get that she's lashing out because she's upset about her father's wedding, and she's in a really tough situation. Like I said before, this is a great premise for a powerful story. But if the movie was really trying to help make a point or a statement about the sexualization of children, or about how it can affect children that are going through this type of thing based on, you know, the societal expectations of young girls, which we'll get into later about the director's comments on this. But if they were really trying to make that point, there would have been some kind of emotional conversation between her and her mom, where the motives are revealed and her mom's able to understand her struggles and, you know, where the girl's coming from, why she's having such a rough time, and helps her find balance. Like the movie we just watched, Goofy Movie. You know, it's a goofy movie, obviously, but it's really well written because there's two characters that don't understand each other, and they eventually end up understanding each other and working things out. But in this movie, everything just works out automatically somehow, and it doesn't make sense.
No.
So how does the movie end?
Well, the movie ends by Ami going outside in normal kid clothes.
Yeah, for the first time in the whole movie, pretty much.
And just jumping rope with some other kids. That's it.
Yeah, and for some reason, as the camera pans up and away for the final shot of the movie, she keeps jumping higher and higher to align with the camera, even when it's at a ridiculous height. Her face is always level with the camera as she's jumping, which Rosie said it's an artistic choice.
Well, yeah, I think it's an artistic choice representing like her feeling lighter and lighter and coming back to Earth as a kid, but also like being lessened of the weight on her shoulders of being sexualized.
That's interesting. That actually makes sense, I guess. Mm-hmm. But it looks really weird. Well, and it takes you out of the gravity of the movie.
It's dumb because she had no consequences and no lessons to get her to that point. Yeah. It was just her crying to her mom when they didn't even have a discussion about anything. She just cried.
Yeah, there was no communication.
So it's very unrealistic.
This will probably happen again.
So it's like, how is a kid supposed to feel enlightened and back to square one of being a kid when they don't even have the boundaries set in place or the lessons built? Like, it just doesn't. I don't know. Yeah. I don't like it.
So, I mean, all this said, the writing isn't the real problem with this movie. It's the willingness to film children in a sexual way.
Well, can I interject, though? Because I did feel like there were a few things in the writing that bugged me.
Yeah, what are you...
Well, first, in the beginning, when the girls were talking about oral sex, and they were talking about, like, what it feels like to have a penis in your mouth, and they wanted to get a picture of that boy's penis at school, and, like, got Ami to, like, go in the bathroom, like, super inappropriate. Yeah. Not necessary.
Well, yeah, and that's all part of the bigger problem we're about to talk about. But I'm talking about, like, how well written it was. I'm not talking about the actual things they wrote into the movie, because obviously the writing, as far as that goes, is the problem. Okay. It's the things that they're having these kids do.
Well, because I had one more thing that really stood out to me in the writing, and it was when the dance crew were in the park, and they saw these, like, older guys who were obviously, like, 18, and the 18-year-olds like came up to them and like, hey, how old are you guys? And they all were trying to lie and say that they were 14, except for the one that was like, we're 11.
Yeah, Ami was like, we're 11, and then they all get mad at her.
And the rest of the dance crew was like, why'd you do that? Oh my gosh, no, boys, come back. And I'm like, if there are young girls watching this, then all they're doing is learning, oh, this is what we should do to like get our first boyfriend. And I felt like that was so messed up.
Yeah, that's what leads to the question of who is this movie even for? Yeah. Because it grosses adults out, and it's inappropriate for children, because children would look at these girls as role models.
Yes, they would soak it up like a sponge.
Which is really interesting because the director talks about role models, which we'll get to. But first, like we said, the real problem with this movie is the willingness to sexualize children on film. Sexualizing children at all is a huge problem, but doing it on film, putting it out into the mainstream where people can watch it.
You cannot tell me that
that's trying to normalize it.
This was the celebrating the sexualization of children and normalizing it. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And you can't watch this movie and think to yourself, this is okay. You can't.
To illustrate that, what a real problem this is, there's a video on YouTube of a guy having an honest talk about this movie, and what he says is disgusting, and also shows why this movie is doing the opposite of what it claims. So this is a guy on YouTube whose name is Mr. Girl, and be warned, these are his words, and it's disturbing, but it shows the problem. So here's what he had to say.
And it juxtaposes these amazing scenes where, like, you'll see the girls playing on a bed where they're stuffing gummy bears in their mouths and they're just totally children. And then you'll see them shaking their booties on this stairway as they make this this viral video. And they're pretty hot. You can say whatever you want about me. It's not my fault. I didn't make them do that. They did that. That's the point. That's the whole point of the movie, is that you're supposed to be sitting there thinking, look at the blonde one. You're supposed to be sitting there holding these two thoughts in your head, and one, that these are kids, and the other, that they're hot. And I don't even know if you're supposed to be comfortable with that. It's more like you're just supposed to be informed that you are capable of that and that you feel that way.
Oh my gosh.
I already knew that, but I think it's a good thing to put that out there. Artistically, I think it's a good thing.
Okay, I'm done listening to this guy. Rosie, you look like you're about to explode.
Okay. No, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for people to think that these are kids and they're hot. That's not okay. Like,
well, and I can't get over how he says, I didn't do that. They did that.
And they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Producers and parents made them
He's
do
implying the children in this film decided to do this. When in reality, the adult producers, the directors behind the film, the parents, they hired these young actors and told them what to do and say. Then they filmed it and framed it in a way to literally exploit them, zooming in on their privates while they twerk. And they made it to appeal to sickos that think this is a good thing, like this guy.
Yeah.
Most of the people who would like this are either pedophile sympathizers or more likely pedophiles themselves.
What do you mean, MAPS?
What's that?
Remember MAPS, minor... Remember she talked about it in that video we watched yesterday?
Hold on, I gotta look it up.
I'm sorry. Attracted persons, minor attracted persons.
So that's what they call them?
Yeah.
That's what...
And the person we were watching yesterday said if you label it MAPS, you're trying to normalize it. Like, yeah, I'm a MAP, or I can understand the MAPS. Like, you're trying to normalize this group of people. And it's like, it's driving me nuts, and this guy is driving me nuts because he's like, they're kids in the gummy bear scene, but then they're hot, and look at the blonde. Like, no, maybe this guy wasn't even, had these feelings, but then he watched this movie, and now he's like, it's okay. Like, the movie's, like, saying it's okay and trying to get people to realize that girls, little kids can be hot. And it's like, is this where we are at? And
then he blames the child actors
for
doing it.
This movie is like the biggest the hugest disgrace. I can't even understand.
Claiming to be someone who is trying to fight against this thing and then creating something that's so off in what it's claiming to do. It's ridiculous. But the director really stands by the film. We're going to talk about her so we can, be fair, because I think she had good intentions.
I don't even know
I
if
don't
she
know.
did.
Yeah, it's hard to say that based on what was actually created. But
Do you
let's
know-
talk about the director and the concept of this film.
Do you know how to pronounce her name?
No.
Memiona Dickel.
This Dukun?
Okay, I'm just going to call her the director. So this movie, Cuties, was the first feature-length film ever created by this director. The director took her life experience as a refugee girl into account, and the script eventually won Sundance's Global Filmmaking Award in 2017. The director says she based the film after seeing a talent show in Paris. She says that the contrast of the dancing and the traditional garb of the families in the audience was fascinating. Casting for the film took nearly 6 months. Approximately 700 girls auditioned for the main character, and ultimately 11-year-old Fathia Yusuf was chosen. Sorry, I probably butchered that.
You know, to us, we're like, we don't know how the film industry works, but there's a music video director on Twitter named Robbie Starbuck who had something to say about this. He's worked with acts like Snoop Dogg, Yellowcard, Megadeth, Silverstein. So, you know, he's got experience in the casting area, I guess. He tweeted, "The whole team behind Cuties needs to be investigated. Look what I found." He found this thing saying that, you know, she auditioned more than 700 young girls all over France in the search for her young amateur cast, none of whom had ever done theater before coming on set, which is another concerning thing. But he says in the tweet, "As a director, I can tell you it is not normal to audition 700 little girls with no acting experience." And then he goes on to speculate, what were they told to do during auditions? And then he makes the accusation, they preyed on inexperienced people starstruck by Hollywood. So it's something to think about. I mean, it is all just speculation, but 700? That would cost so much and take so long. Mm-hmm. And it's not normal for that many people to be auditioned for one role. Mm-hmm. But another interesting thing is a comment the producer made about the casting process of children, which is what this guy was talking about. So, Rosie, will you read that full statement?
Mm-hmm. The director auditioned more than 700 young girls all over France in search of her young amateur cast, none of whom had ever done theater before coming on set. We found Fathia, who plays the lead role, on the very last day, she says. A friend of her mother had mentioned the audition, but she had forgotten about it and nearly didn't turn up. It was sort of a fluke we found her at the 11th hour. I was seriously considering putting the shoot on hold because I hadn't found the right actress.
I feel so bad for Fathia here because, like, she had forgotten about this audition, almost didn't show up, and then ended up getting this lead role in a movie that, you know, she didn't know any better. She's an 11-year-old kid. She's doing what the adults are telling her to do.
Right.
And it ends up being this disgusting piece of trash movie. I'm sorry if you like this movie, but to claim it's against child sexualization and then put this kind of thing on the screen, it's hypocritical.
The article goes on to say, it is the third time the director has worked with a young cast. She loves working with youngsters, she says, but admits it comes with a special set of challenges. Youngsters of this age are really unpredictable. You can't reason with them like an adult and say things like, "You signed a contract," she says.
So she admits you can't reason with these kids like an adult, but she also thinks they're capable of making the decision to let an adult filmmaker exploit them in a sexual way?
Yep.
Isn't that the same principle as statutory rape? A child does not have the ability to consent to sex. How can they have the ability to consent to being filmed in a sexual way? I get that the director was inspired by real life, but again, I just think the execution was really poorly done. They could have gotten the point across without making real 11-year-old children twerk and act out sexual scenarios. And we just saw why it's a problem, because some people out there think it's good and they find it arousing, which is a huge red flag that this movie crosses a line.
Right.
People should never be provoked into thinking about a child that way. But in the interest of being unbiased here, we'll share a bit more from Wikipedia about the director's motives behind the film, what she claims.
Okay. The director said she created a climate of trust between the children and herself during filming.
That sounds like grooming.
She stated, while working on the film, I explained to them everything I was doing and the research I had done before I wrote this story. I was also lucky that these girls' parents were also activists, so we were all on the same side.
Activists for what?
At their age, they've seen this kind of dance. Any child with a telephone can find these images on social media these days. She also stated that she worked with a child psychologist during this film. I would love to know the name of that psychologist.
Right? Was she licensed or just say she's a child psychologist?
The director spent nearly 18 months researching studies on how young and preteen children are being exposed to 18-plus adult contact and sexualized images on social media in order to showcase the accurate reality in the film. Now, that I agree with, that kids are like shown and seeing all this stuff. Like, that's not surprising.
Exactly. And like I said, these are real issues that need to be addressed and talked about, and parents need to communicate with their children about. But this is not the way.
Going on, she says that the film deals with self-image in social media. Our girls see that the more a woman is overly sexualized in social media, the more she's successful. And the children just imitate what they see, trying to achieve the same result without understanding the meaning. And yeah, it's dangerous.
Well, then make that clear.
Yeah, again,
in the movie.
I was just going to say, like, that sounds like a good plot. I haven't seen that movie. She insists many people are missing the point. The real question of Cuties is, can we as women truly choose what we want to be beyond the role models that are imposed upon us by society? Did not get that message.
It's really sad that she thinks that this is making a positive statement or even making a negative statement in an impactful way about all of this stuff. And it's sad that things are the way they are where this even needs to be talked about. But again, how is taking real 11-year-old children and filming them in a sexually exploitative way supposed to get this message across? Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And I don't think that every 11-year-old girl is in this type of situation. Like, the director makes it seem like this is so, like, every day. Like, everybody sees these images and is overly sexualized, hypersexualized by what they see. But, like, I
mean, this girl only saw it because she stole a phone.
My 11-year-old Lainey, she's a dancer too, but I never have seen her dance like that, and she doesn't even know what sex is.
This stuff doesn't cross a regular 11-year-old's mind unless... Well, that's the other thing about this movie. The parents, besides Ami's parents, were completely MIA. There was absolutely no parental influence.
You didn't even see their parents. You didn't know who they were.
That's another thing, is the parental responsibility of not letting your 11-year-old be exposed to these things. It's good to educate them how to react if someone takes advantage of them. That's good. We promote that. I guess we've made the point clear. These 11-year-old girls were coerced into having these videos made of them and put out there in the world forever. These real 11-year-old girls. This decision to make this video was made long before the age of consent. It's not fair to these girls who are in the film. And it's so irresponsible of this director and every adult who approved a script or held a camera or edited the clips or published this film. Especially Netflix, who bought it and had it translated into English for their platform.
It's bizarre that they thought this was a good idea.
I know. It's such a crazy idea. And it's just so mishandled. And another thing we haven't mentioned is when Ami, the main girl, she sees that rival dance crew outside, and she like walks up to them, grabs one of them by the hair, and randomly starts attacking them. And as punishment for this, they throw her on the ground and pull down her skin-tight leather pants and take photos of her while the cameraman, the real cameraman, zooms in on her panties. Like, why? Why was this film made the way it was? There's so many spots where they blatantly exploited the children in this film that could have been edited out or filmed in a way that wasn't so provocative and sexual. Like, how did it get through every stage of writing, filming, editing, post-production without anyone being like, you know, this is a bad idea?
I think it made it because I don't think it was about helping people see the sexualization in children. I think that it was loosely wrapped in a thin veil of like, yeah, this is okay because we're activists. I think it was just made for the pedos. I really do.
It's interesting you say that, because one of the questions going around is that, is it possible that the promotion of this movie is an attempt by certain people in Hollywood to try to normalize these things?
Yes.
Like, we've seen so many Hollywood people implicated in everything that went on with Epstein, people who appeared to be upstanding actors. They're being associated with a known pedophile whose true source of income seemed to be procuring underage girls for billionaires. So is it possible that similar people are behind getting this movie bought and promoted on Netflix to try to get more creeps to come out of the woodwork in support of pedophilia, like Mr. Girl on YouTube? I mean, it sounds really twisted and far-fetched, but we already see people sharing their perverted ideas.
That's what I
about
think.
their arousal by this movie.
This movie does not, it is not warning parents, and it's not warning children. It's not made for children. It's starring children for people to gawk and drool over, but it is not made for children to learn from.
No. And
I would never let my kids watch this.
I want to mention another weird anomaly that happened on Rotten Tomatoes. So a couple days ago, this film on Rotten Tomatoes, when it had 1,047 audience ratings, the audience score was 3%. And the critics' score was 88%.
No.
It's like such a huge gap.
The critics gave it 88%.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But here's the weird part. Today, on September 15th, it's up to 1,531 ratings, and somehow the rating has gone up to 11%. It had to have gotten so many good ratings for it to go from 3% up to 11%. And I'm baffled by how that rating could be going up. But apparently, this director is confident in her work and sees no problem with it. And certain people on YouTube think that it's a good thing.
By the way, it's now at 90% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, critic score?
Yeah.
What's the audience score?
It doesn't show. I was looking at reviews.
Oh, okay. Well, here, I have it right here.
At IMDb, it's 2.2.
Okay, it's 90% critic score, 11% audience score, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. How it could be such a huge gap between the scores. That's literally an 80% difference almost. But it's obvious that there are people out there trying to get this film promoted as a good thing. If the score went up that much, and if the critics have rated it 90%, 51 critics have rated it, and it's at a 90%. It's mind-boggling.
It is. It's disgusting.
The reason we're talking about this is we know all too well how damaging child sexual exploitation can be and how dangerous these ideas are, that it's okay to be attracted to kids. I mean, Rosie, you yourself, you had years of your life ruined because of a person who thought these thoughts.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, especially in the scene where it's obvious the portrayal and what they wanted you to think, the directors, was like, lie about your age to the older boys. Like, try to get their attention. Like, move your body. Try to twerk on them. It was just like they were making like the guys look good because the guys were like, oh, you guys are 11, you're kids, and trying. So like the guys were in the bad
trying
light.
To make it look like all adults are good and they won't let a kid hit on them. When in reality, they should have been showing more people like that guy in the laser tag place.
Right.
That were actually trying to take advantage of them.
But my point is like they were putting bad light on the boys for like not wanting to hang out with the 11-year-olds.
Oh, yeah.
And the 11-year-olds were in the right. Like, oh my God, why did you tell them we were 11? We should be like 14. Be 14. We need to look older. Da, 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 da. And just like. Yeah.
And that's the confusing part about having the protagonists of this film doing the bad things. It's weird. But like I said, your life has been impacted by this attitude that this guy on YouTube has, that it's a good thing that this is happening. Many of our listeners have endured unimaginable pain because of monsters with these same ideas.
Yeah, I can guarantee anybody who's had any kind of sexual abuse in their lives, especially as a child, is going to find this repulsive. Yeah. And disagree with the fight for whatever the activists are trying to do with it.
I can't imagine how you could get behind this movie unless you're a pedophile and you want to normalize it.
Yeah.
Like, why did they need to see 700 girls who have never acted before twerk in an audition?
Yeah. The only activist fight that I can think of for this film is trying to normalize child sexualization. That's it.
So those are our thoughts on the movie. What do you guys listening think about this movie? We want you to share your thoughts with us. We'd love to do a follow-up to this, sharing the thoughts from our audience, especially people who may have also been impacted by the trauma of sexual exploitation of children, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to know the thoughts of people who have actually been impacted by this kind of thing.
I could, like, talk about this movie forever, for hours, because it's, really, like, so much.
I don't want to say I'm glad we watched it, but since we have this podcast and, you know, we try to shed light on things like this, I'm glad that we're able to talk about it.
Yeah.
And share our thoughts on it.
This movie, I just, like, would never show an 11-year-old this movie. I would never want my grandma to see this movie.
I don't think this movie should be legal.
Don't want my husband to watch it, and I don't want to watch it. I just don't get the audience.
Yeah, and if it's it's supposed to
pedos, this is for
what the director is saying it's meant to do is something that deep down you should be passionate about. If what she's saying is true, if this movie is actually fighting that fight. You know, you having experience with this should be passionate about this movie, but you're grossed out, you're disgusted by it, and it makes you feel gross.
It's so gross.
Because it's not well done. Again, we want to hear what you guys think of it, because honestly, I think it should be made illegal. I don't know how this can be on Netflix.
I don't know
or
either.
even a legal piece of media.
Whew.
Because it's so exploitative. But anyway.
That's it.
Like,
yeah. Man.
I mean, it's a French movie. I don't know if there's something different about the culture or what, but
I didn't get the vibe when I was in France, but
no. But this director's standing so firmly behind her movie.
Well, she has no other choice. What's she gonna do? Like, oh yeah, you're right. I was making porn.
Well,
you know.
It's hard to do, but you gotta own up to... I can't tell you how many things I've created that I realize now suck. You know, as an artist, you gotta be humble enough to admit when you did something bad, and you gotta be humble enough to make improvements.
Yeah.
If you want people to enjoy what you're making, or to think it's good, you need to listen to criticism. You need to try to improve with every piece of art you make. And you need to be willing to accept that not everything you make is great. And you may feel like you wasted your time making it, but if you use it as a learning experience for something to never do again, I mean, this director, if she did that, she might be able to actually make a good movie doing what she thinks this movie was supposed to do. And it could be good if she just listened to criticism. Mm-hmm. I don't think she needs to stand behind this movie. I think... it doesn't matter what I think. I've said enough. I think everyone can make up their own minds about it. But with that said, I do not recommend it.
No, I don't either. But I think you know that.
Yeah. Well, we better wrap this up.
I know.
Hopefully this episode wasn't too disturbing.
I mean, you don't have to watch it now.
Like I told Rosie earlier, I felt the same way after watching this movie that I felt after we covered Davidito.
Yeah, you did say that.
Disgusted. Except the problem is this movie is being promoted by Netflix. You know, it's not being regarded as a crime. It's being promoted by a huge media company. Mm-hmm. And it's still being viewed as okay.
Right. Right.
Like, my prediction is the law will get involved with this. That's just my prediction. I don't know. I think they will because of all the public backlash, but we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you guys for listening. You have anything else to say, Rosie?
No, I'm spent.
Okay.
I think we'll just end it short and sweet, I guess.
It was nice to see your passion.
That fire.
All right. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Okay. Bye.